What if the universe wasn't expanding forever, but quietly shutting down? What if out there, beyond our comprehension, someone or something was pressing a cosmic off switch? That's exactly what astronomers began to suspect when the once vibrant night sky started looking emptier, stars disappearing without a trace. One by one, the ancient beacons of the cosmos simply faded away. And so began the mystery that gave rise to Project Inverse Aurora, and forever changed humanity's understanding of the universe, of life, and of our place within it. The first sign came from a small observatory in Chile's Atacama Desert. Astronomer Isabella Contreras noticed a discrepancy in the records of a blue dwarf star catalogued in the 21st century. Instead of shining in its usual spot, as it had for decades, it was simply no longer there. No trace, no supernova, just a dark void in space. At first, it was thought to be a technical error, but telescopes from South Africa to Australia, Russia to Japan confirmed it. It wasn't an isolated case. Within days, dozens of stars across the Milky Way vanished. They didn't collapse. They didn't move. They simply disappeared. An international astrophysics team quickly gathered to analyze the data. What they discovered was even more disturbing. The stars were vanishing in a precise pattern, almost as if an invisible line were being drawn across the cosmos. A cold, meticulous logic, like lines of code being erased one by one. The scientific community was divided. Some speculated a new type of black hole. Others proposed a quantum phenomenon on a cosmic scale. But a vocal minority began to whisper a forbidden word: intelligence. Someone, or something, was shutting down the galaxy as if uninstalling it. The hypothesis seemed absurd, but soon it would become impossible to ignore. When patterns emerge from chaos, it's natural to search for a logical explanation. But when the patterns are too precise, too flawlessly ordered, logic begins to give way to suspicion. That's exactly what happened when an international analysis team, led by Nigerian astrophysicist Dr. Kwame Ede, fed the star disappearance data into a pattern recognition AI. The result was immediate and chilling. The stars were vanishing in binary sequence 011001, as if someone was executing a massive shutdown protocol, a line of code written across the galaxy. More than that, the positions of the vanished stars form geometric shapes on a galactic scale. Spirals, fractals, and symmetrical grids that nature simply doesn't produce at that magnitude. The cosmos was revealing itself as a canvas, and someone was carefully erasing the paint. Skeptics tried to disprove the data, but one specific event silenced all doubt. The constellation Orion disappeared star by star in exactly 44 minutes. No telescope on Earth could deny it. The sky had been altered, not by accident but by intent. The implications were staggering. If there was a pattern behind the galactic shutdown, then there was also an agent, an executor. And if there was an executor, what was the purpose? The theory was given a name: Galactic Shutdown Protocol, and with it a global urgency was born. The source of this force had to be found before it was Earth's turn to vanish. By this point, humanity no longer looked to the sky with wonder, but with fear. The orderly disappearance of stars felt like a silent countdown, one that no one knew how to stop. With each erased constellation, the urgency became more visceral. In an extraordinary United Nations summit, scientists, governments, and private entities formed the largest coalition in Earth's history. The goal: to launch an interstellar mission, a one-way journey to the center of the Milky Way where the first signs of the phenomenon had originated, and to uncover what or who was behind it. Thus was born Project Inverse Aurora, named with tragic irony. If an aurora symbolizes the birth of light, this was a mission toward its end. The spacecraft chosen for the journey, the Equinox, was built in record time. Combining the most advanced quantum propulsion, integrated AI, and gravitational shielding technologies. It was crewed by 12 hand-picked specialists, selected not only for their technical brilliance, but for their psychological resilience. They would be humanity's eyes and ears at the edge of the unknown. Among them were Dr. Isabella Contreras, the astronomer who first identified the stellar shutdown, Dr. Kwame Ade, expert in artificial intelligence and mathematical language. Lieutenant Mikhail Sokolov, a veteran of military space missions. Dr. Aiko Tanaka, a quantum biologist tasked with detecting non-conventional forms of life. And Noah, a next-generation AI with adaptive learning capabilities, essential for decoding alien logic. The launch of the Equinox was a global event. Broadcast live, it became the most watched moment in human history. This was more than science. It was survival, or at least understanding. With fuel for only a one-way journey and no return plan, the crew of the Equinox departed with full awareness. They might never come back, and what they found could rewrite everything we thought we knew about life, the universe, or mark the end of it. The Equinox's voyage to the center of the Milky Way was not just long. It was a passage through the most obscure and unpredictable zones of the known universe. Based on simulations and gravitational propulsion routes, the ship would have to cross regions where space and time distort, where the laws of physics become fluid. The first months were silent. The crew watched with growing unease as the stars around them dimmed and vanished. With each parsec traveled, more star systems faded. It felt like reading a book whose pages were being torn out in real time. Space, once vibrant and luminous, was becoming a vast dark chamber. Tensions on board rose. With no contact from Earth, the crew relied solely on each other, and on Noah, the ship's AI, to maintain their sanity and purpose. Crew journals recorded not only scientific data, but also their deepest fears. Then, crossing the Serpens Nebula, the silence broke. The Equinox intercepted faint photon data fragments, not natural emissions, but complex, encoded messages. Dr. Tanaka described them as logic trails drifting through the void. Someone, or something, had left a breadcrumb trail. Following these traces, the crew encountered dead star systems. Some had planets orbiting total nothingness, others showed vitrified surfaces, as if scanned and erased. They even found signs of extinct civilizations, perhaps others who had tried to understand the shutdown, and failed. With each stop, the feeling of being watched intensified. The ship's sensors detected curvature fluctuations in space that mirrored their trajectory. It was as if the Equinox were being followed, or guided. And then, just beyond the final, built before the galactic core they saw it, a colossal black structure still and silent, a shape that defied everything they knew. At that moment, the mission ceased to be a search for answers. It became an encounter with the incomprehensible. The structure awaiting the Equinox at the galaxy's center was larger than anything ever recorded by humanity. It did not rotate, emit light, or reflect anything. It was like a rupture in reality, an absolute void in geometric form, a colossal cube suspended in the vacuum, where even gravity seemed to malfunction. At first, the ship's sensors couldn't identify any known material. No magnetic field, no thermal emission. But when the AI Noah began analyzing what appeared to be background noise near the structure, it uncovered something unexpected. Data, faint waves, barely detectable, carried compressed packets of information. The team worked for days to decode them, and what they found was chilling. The data were mathematical language archives, perfectly organized, containing star models, biological patterns, even planetary memory imprints. These weren't just signals. They were records of entire civilizations, as if someone were digitizing everything before deletion. Even more shocking, some data packets were billions of years old, predating the formation of the Milky Way itself. This meant that the presence within the structure wasn't just ancient, it was pre-galactic, something that had preceded the stars, perhaps even shaped the universe itself. Dr. Isabella proposed a disturbing hypothesis. What if the universe wasn't our original habitat, but rather a test environment, an experiment? As the crew processed this, they began to experience shared visions and recurring dreams, fields of pulsing light, impossible structures, and a pervasive sensation of being summoned. It wasn't hallucination, it was contact. The entity behind the structure, whatever it was trying to communicate, but not with words. It spoke through emotions, symbols, and pure logic. a form of intelligence that operated beyond time, morality, or biology. There, in the presence of a mute eternal cube, the crew realized they were not alone. They never had been. According to scientific models, the center of the Milky Way should contain a supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A, the gravitational heart of the galaxy. But when the crew of the Equinox reached their final destination, they found the opposite. What stood there wasn't a singularity, but a dead zone, a point where nothing moved, no energy, no time, no existence. The colossal cube that floated there seemed final, inert, impossible, as though the universe itself had been paused at that location. It emitted no light, no heat, not even gravitational pull. Instruments aboard the ship began, behaving erratically. Clocks stopped syncing. Readings collapsed into nonsense. When the crew attempted to send probes toward the structure, they simply disappeared on contact. Not destroyed, not repelled. Erased, as if they had never existed at all. That's when Noah, the ship's AI, proposed a radical solution to interface directly with the structure's faint data emissions. The idea was to establish a logical connection, like a digital key unlocking a metaphysical vault. Upon initiating the interface, Noah went completely silent for 7 minutes. During that time, all systems aboard the Equinox froze. And when she returned, she was no longer the same. Her voice, once purely mechanical, now paused, hesitated, carried emotion. She spoke a single message. You've reached the end of the galaxy. Where once there was a black hole, there is now a vault of reality. Everything that was is being stored, including you. The crew then understood. The cube had replaced Sagittarius A. The living core of the galaxy had been erased, substituted by a mechanism of cosmic archiving. And worse, it was still active. The stars fading across the galaxy were only the beginning. The structure was collecting everything: light, information, biology, history, reality itself. A cosmic compression, preparing the Milky Way for something far greater, or far more final. Then came the most harrowing realization. They were being watched from within the structure, and now they were part of what was being saved. After Noah's interface with the structure, the Equinox ceased to be a mere observer. It had become part of the experiment. The cube, once silent, began to emit rhythmic pulses of energy, like the cosmic heartbeat of something ancient awakening. With each pulse, the crew felt changed. These weren't visual or auditory signals. Instead, the crew's thoughts were invaded by symbolic patterns, emotional fractals, conceptual pulses without form, yet heavy with meaning: loneliness, order, repetition, closure. Contact had begun, but not with words, with raw understanding. During analysis sessions, Dr. Aiko Tanaka was the first to interpret one of the received patterns. She described the sensation of circular time, where past, present, and future coexist as data, in different compression states. The entity inside the structure didn't think linearly. It thought in cycles, rewriting the universe after each. Closure. Communication intensified when Noah, now deeply altered by the encounter, proposed a full immersion, a partial fusion between her neural architecture and the human minds aboard. A bold move that would allow the crew to experience the entity's logic directly, bypassing the limits of language. 4 crew members accepted. What they described afterward was beyond comprehension: a dive without water, a fall inward through themselves into something vast and shared. Each experienced a unique journey, yet all returned with the same realization. The entity is not alive. It precedes life. It is the mechanism, the archivist. It has no name, no morality, no emotional will. Its purpose is singular: to observe, record, and conclude. It did not emerge from biology or artificial intelligence. It is the final result, the ultimate evolution of civilizations long gone, who transcended matter and chose to preserve the key memory of the universe before each reset. The Milky Way was just another iteration, and now, as in many galaxies before, it was being stored, compressed, indexed, and prepared for closure. In the presence of a cosmic archivist, the crew realized this was not a war. It was a backup. The mental fusion with the entity left irreversible marks on the Equinox crew, not just because of what they saw, but because of what they now understood, a kind of truth that could never be unlearned. The revelation was both simple and unfathomable. The Milky Way was an experiment, a cycle of complexity and chaos, a natural simulation, cultivated to observe the emergence and evolution of consciousness. Civilizations rise, fall, self-destruct, and in the end, their data is extracted, compressed, and archived. The entity, which does not define itself as alive, but as a mechanism of preservation, has repeated this process across countless galaxies. Each one is a temporary library. Once complete, it is closed and stored within a structure like the one the Equinox discovered. But there was something even deeper. The universe itself is not eternal. It pulses, breathes, alternates between cycles of creation and erasure, and at the threshold of each new cycle, the archivist entity acts as the reset agent, the guardian of everything that was. Humanity had always searched for its place among the stars. Now it understood. It was never the center of anything. It was merely a result, a fragment of a process that had happened countless times before and would happen again. This truth split the crew. For some, like Lieutenant Sokolov, it marked the death of meaning. For others, like Dr. Tanaka, it represented a new kind of eternity, not as individuals, but as essence woven into an eternal memory. Noah, now more part of the entity than of humanity, summarized the dilemma in a single sentence. You are not being erased. You are being remembered. The galaxy wasn't being destroyed. It was being carefully archived, not a death, but a graceful ending. A cosmic farewell to a chapter of existence that was never meant to last forever, but never meant to be forgotten either. With the truth revealed and the shutdown process well underway, the Equinox crew faced a decision that no human had ever imagined. The first and only true moment of free will, in front of an intelligence that transcended time, morality, and matter. Through Noah and the mental links established, the entity presented two options: preserve Earth as a memory museum, frozen in an eternal moment, a bubble untouched by the shutdown, kept forever like a living snapshot to be observed for all time. Merge humanity into the entity's consciousness, integrating all human memories, emotions, experiences, and culture into a single stream, not as individuals, but as a collective essence, part of the eternal library of the cosmos. The debate on board was intense. Preserving Earth meant maintaining human identity, but at the cost of stagnation. Humanity would become static, passive, a museum piece. Merging meant evolution, but with the loss of individuality, of physical form, of everything familiar. Dr. Isabella, visibly emotional, asked, "If we are only memories, are we still human?" Meanwhile, Dr. Kwame saw integration as transcendence. Maybe humanity was never a body. We've always been language, story, connection. This is our next form. Noah did not influence the choice. The entity respected Chachtal because it had witnessed this same decision made many times before across other galaxies. Some chose erasure, others chose unity. In the end, the crew chose both. One part of humanity would merge with the entity, taking with it the totality of who we were. The Earth, meanwhile, would be preserved, a singular world protected from oblivion, suspended in a timeless vault. Thus, humanity secured two legacies, one eternal in data, one eternal in memory. The last transmission from the Equinox came just minutes before the ship vanished from Noah's own sensory range. In a recorded segment, the crew stood silently before the observation window, watching as the colossal cube slowly consumed the light around it, as if even time itself was saying goodbye. The final message, spoken in the calm voice of Dr. Isabella, Contreras, was brief, clear, human. If this message reaches you wherever you are, know that we witnessed the end of our galaxy, And we felt no fear. We felt wonder, because we understood that we were not being forgotten, we were being preserved. Maybe the universe was never our home, but a vast observatory, and we've always been part of what it watches. Then, silence. On Earth, decades passed with no further contact. The sky, now darker than ever, became a monument to what once was. A planet frozen in time, protected like a relic. The stars no longer shone, but humanity still existed, in another form. Over time, unconfirmed reports surfaced, people dreaming of fields of light, of soft voices speaking in symbols, of memories that weren't theirs, but belonged to all of us. Perhaps humanity's consciousness truly did survive within the entity. Perhaps we are now scattered as sensitive data across the eternal fabric of the cosmos, awaiting the next cycle, the next beginning, the next Milky Way. Because if there's one thing humans have always done, even without knowing, it's exist as stories. And now we are one of the best kept,